Okay, so in the last video we started the containers, and what I want to do in this video is show you what you can find that's useful information inside Docker Desktop, and then we will go and explore the containers a little bit more in either VS Code and maybe DataGrip. So you have the three containers, you can see them here running. Whenever you're building software or doing certain types of analysis where you're interacting with other systems, it is useful to be able to look at the logs that are generated from the application itself or the systems that are used to run the application. In the context of our project, the way we're going to get to the logs is when you come to Docker Desktop, you can simply click on the name and make sure that the logs tab is selected. And so this will be the logs that are printed from the API, so from the Flask application. And if you peruse the code, you'll see that there are some places where I write to the logger, and so those things would ultimately print out here. Same thing, I'll go back to, let's say, the front end, and any error messages or issues would come here, even stack traces if Python happens to die for some reason. And then finally, MySQL. So this is a little bit more important. I want to point this out. So the log files here will indicate several things. One, that the database is ready to go and for you to connect to it or start using it. And then also, I want to point out this section essentially right here. Okay. So what is happening is this is where it's executing the files that are in the database files folder in the repository. So it's going one by one and executing what's in them. Now what happens is a lot of times when students are working on their project, you'll develop it in sort of a script file in DataGrip, one table at a time and such things, but maybe forget to run the entire file to test to make sure it can sort of go from top to bottom. And so then when Docker, and maybe there's some syntax error or something, then Docker comes and tries to execute it, and it can't finish executing because there's an error. That error would show up inside these Docker logs. So it would say that it's starting it, but below here somewhere, it might not be exactly the next thing, but it would say that it's started, but there was some error in the SQL, and it will usually tell you somewhat helpful information. They're not always the best error messages, but it's what we got. Okay, so that's how to see the logs for the three different containers. Those will be helpful in debugging, so make a note of that. Okay, so with the containers running, I want to show you how to connect to the database container, so the MySQL that's running on, running in this container, but I want to show you how to connect to it from DataGrip. So we know it's running. We know that we have our password that we added in our .env file. So what's up, doc? So I'm just going to grab this because I'll need this in DataGrip. So I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go to DataGrip. Okay, so I've started a new project in DataGrip, so there's no data sources or anything super exciting. So what I'm going to do is create a new MySQL data source. So I'll choose MySQL. Okay, I'm going to call this the project repo. And in terms of the connection information, it is running on localhost, but remember that we port mapped it to 3200. Let me remind you where that is. In the Docker Compose, that is this number right here. So inside the container, MySQL is running on port 3306. But what we're doing here is we're saying to our laptop, hey, anything that goes to port 3200, send it to that container on port 3306. So that's where we're going to use 3200. Okay, so back here, username and password, we're going to connect with root, which is generally not a good idea, but it's good. It's okay for our purposes for now. So then I'm going to paste the password that I created in the that .env file. And if there's something down here that says, do you want to update the drivers or something, go ahead and choose yes or okay. And then once that's all done, you can test connection. And you can see here that there's some problem with my connection. Well, the problem is that I didn't actually change the port number. I just talked about changing it. So I'm going to change that to 3200, and then I'm going to paste the password again, but it saved it, so it's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to test connection, and voila, there we go. It's succeeded. We're good to go. And so then I'm just going to click, you can click apply and then OK, but I'm just going to click OK. And so here's our project data source. Now notice that it doesn't have, you don't see Northwind or classic models or anything. And that's because we haven't told DataGrip to introspect, essentially to like look at the database structure and, so it can show you the tables and whatnot. So we're going to click on this 0 of 7. And we're going to choose, let's say, classic models, Northwind, and the to-do app. Those are the ones we created. And then I'm just going to click out of that. And so then we see Northwind, has all these tables. Classic models has all these tables. And so that's all good to go. So now this is communicating with the database that's running inside the container that's part of your project repository. And so, for instance, if I say something like use Northwind, and then I could say show tables, it's going to show me the tables that are part of Northwind, which of course, yes, you can see here, but just to show you that's what's happening. So here's all our tables, okay? Now, why is this important? So what you're going to ultimately do is construct your database file, so your .SQL for either your schema and or your sample data, and make sure it runs in DataGrip, but you can be connecting to the backend database to test things out, okay? And then once you have it in a good place, you can copy that SQL file into your project repository, okay? So you would copy it directly into the DB, let me show you, into this database files folder. Now, you don't need to do it through VS Code. You can do it through Finder or Windows Explorer, but that's how you would do it. Okay, so that is a little bit of the lay of the land of the database container and getting set up. See you in the next video.